too difficult, how was your journey? I'll share you a quick little experience this morning. I had to travel to Twickenham for a meeting. I left home in Brighton, 7 o'clock, for a 10 o'clock meeting. At 11:15, I still wasn't at Twickenham. It was a horrendous journey this morning. Coming across here was just as bad from Twickenham. For those of you that ever drive on Hanger Lane, what's that all about? I don't understand why you live up here. So changing learning behaviour. Kind of wanted to touch a little bit on what we did last year. So a few of the later slides will recap and recover some of the things that we talked about last year. But it's also to share some experiences and some things that I've tried to think about a little bit differently with aspects of my coaching. So it kind of made me think about what's my journey been like as a coach. So I started coaching, I'm 51 now, 24 years old, parked my car at the rugby club, had a few beers, Saturday night, turned up Sunday morning, like many of you, dragged in to coach these little kids who are about this height, in my jeans, stinking of beer. I must have been a real sight. But do you know what? I really, really loved it. It kind of hooked me in. And ever since then, it's kind of been my life's goal to be the best I can be at that job, at that coaching. And I kind of didn't get hung up on levels and levels of coaching, because that wasn't about me. I wasn't interested in the level. I just wanted to be good, and I wanted to be as good as what I possibly could be. It recently got me thinking about my journey. And one of the big things that came out for me was, as soon as we get an award, we get our level 1s, we get our level 2s, we attend these CPDs, we have an ambition to be a level 3 coach, we attend the CPDs, we start to look to other people to shape our own learning. And we validate that by going and watching whatever elite coaches deliver. And we look at what they deliver on a pitch, brilliant, look, I've got something new, I'm going to take that back to my club. So all of our coaching and all of our delivery is really been built by somebody else. And I kind of wanted to think about this differently and say to you guys, how many of you sit there and think about new ways to do things? Read new books about coaching philosophy, about coaching methodology, and really challenge ourselves to be the best that we can be. Anybody do that in here? A number of you, I would imagine. Some people are just a little bit reluctant to put their hands up. But that's kind of where this comes from. So, I have an ambition tonight. My ambition tonight is to get you to go away with more questions than what you came here with. Now, I don't mind being at the end. I'll give you my phone number, I'll give you my email address. I don't mind being at the end of any of those conversations. When you go away and you think, I wished I'd asked that, or I wished I knew a little bit more about that, or that's got me thinking about that. What did he mean by that? I'm quite happy to follow up. Because these are just my experiences, and by no means am I trying to change your own personal views. I'm just going to throw some things out and say, do you know what? If we think about things differently, if we think about things really out there, we can do a lot more with ourselves and our own coaching. Make sense? Because that's kind of what it's like at the moment, isn't it? We don't know which direction to take after tonight. How many of you, as coaches, sit down and kind of plan your coaching journey? This is what I'm really, really good at. These are the things that I don't think I'm particularly good at. Anybody do that? Great, who's got pen and paper with them? Most people. Guys, I'll share the slides with you. They'll all come out with you, so will the notes. So don't feel you've got to make the notes. But I'm going to ask you a quick thing to do. I want you to think about what are the key coaching principles, what are key things that make your sessions great. Just write it down for yourself. This is about you at this moment in time. What do I believe are the essentials to me delivering a good session? Now, we could be lovey, huggy and fluffy and say fun and enjoyment. Yeah, kind of take them as a given. What are the things behind that fun and enjoyment that are going to make your session excellent? Just share it with the guy next to you. Have a quick little conversation. 2 minutes, just write down 2 or 3 things that you say, do you know what, this is what I believe good coaching is all about.
I've got one.
Try and think about that.
So I will find that day.
Good one.
Fine. Right, how much can we get into this? All right.
Okay, we should start to formulate one or two ideas or three ideas that we think good coaching is about. So I'm just going to share with you a statement on the screen, which is what I would like to try and take my own coaching. I'll come back to my coaching journey. I'm still in the middle of this journey. I've not got to the end of it yet. This is still me discovering some of these things for myself. So I just want you to read that, and I'll try and pick out a couple of the words in a minute. So I know what you're all thinking. Who's that posh kid at the front that uses a word like affordances? You are, aren't you? Well, I never went to university, left school at 15, and it took me a while to look it up and really understand what it meant as well. But for me, it's a really, really key word, because what affordance really means is opportunity. Can I see an opportunity, and how do I take the opportunity? How do I maximise the opportunity? So if you change affordances for opportunity, how does that now read for you? It starts to make a little bit more sense, doesn't it? Probably a little bit more practical. But I quite like the word affordances. It kind of makes me look a little bit posh, a little bit more clever than what I might well be. So yeah, so I started looking at that and thinking, well, actually, what does that mean a little bit more? Traditional coaching. So put your hands up. You've just done your level 1, you've just done your level 2. Well, you've done that in the last 5 years. How many people have done an award course in the last 5 years? So the vast majority in the room. And what we do is we spend a lot of time on this perfect practice, don't we? This is how you pass a ball. And I'm going to pass the ball from A to B, and this is how you grip it. This is how we swing. This is what our arms look like. But how do we make any sense of that? Where does it actually fit? And here's the real key question I want to ask you. How often can that be performed under the constraints of the game? So a key question is perfect technique more important and aesthetics more important than outcome? So if we're saying that outcome is probably more important than the aestheticness. So I'm not really bothered how player A gets the ball to player B, as long as he gets it there at an appropriate time. Because I'm not in control of his skill execution. That I can help shape, that I can help deliver. But if he understands the timing of the pass, it's probably more important to me. So how do we structure our practices where we're spending a lot more time on understanding when rather than how? And how does ability impact on your session? What do we view ability as?
Skill.
Skill level? Any other thoughts?
Awareness.
Sorry, awareness?
As soon as I just have quick hip, that picks me up.
So perception might well be in there as well, and the ability to perceive something's going to happen. Talk a little bit more about perception later again.
Completion.
Sorry?
Completion.
So skill execution? So there's a number of things in there. Well, do you know what? Ability is probably, we kind of go on and on and on about ability, but the ability is probably based on my ability to perform, and everybody's ability to perform is at a different level. So if we understand that every player that comes in front of you has a different level of ability, however, the outcome, or the perception, or the non-aesthetic element of it is more important than their ability. So why do we spend so much time on the aesthetic ability. Why might we do that?
You've got to have a base to start with.
Sorry?
You've got to have a baseline to start with.
That's one way of looking at it, without a doubt. We need a baseline. My question back is, do we?
Yes, I think you do. Because how do you measure people's ability? You don't have a benchmark to start with.
So if we come back to what does ability look like, for me, everybody's ability is shaped by their ability to do something. So my skill level might not be as good as your skill level, but I still might be able to get the ball where it needs to get to. So do we need that benchmark?
I still think we do, yes. Because you've got to get the ball from me to you or whatever it is. How well they do that then is what the coach then develops.
Take it back another step, you've got to even know if they can pass or catch.
Yeah.
Well, that's a different section to it, but you're absolutely right. So what we'll do is, we'll spend lots of time drilling this, won't we? Now, I'll put my hand up. 20 years ago, I coached the way I was taught. The way I was taught was I turned up, I ran around the pitch 25 times, and then when I was absolutely knackered, I'd then do some passing practice, and I'm going to be brutally honest, I wasn't very good at catching. So every time I dropped the ball, I had to do a load of press-ups. I'll tell you what, I had great arms. Still couldn't catch and pass though, the one skill that I was probably there to develop. So, you know, I'll put my hand up. That's kind of where we started from. Actually, I'm going to drill you because it's easier. It's easier to drill and coach within that kind of non-competitive framework than it is to coach within a competitive framework. And it comes back down to the simple point is, what is the outcome that you're looking for? And where do children really learn? And where do players, irrespective of where the children are, where do players actually learn? Does that make sense? I see you frowning a little bit, which is good. It means you've got a question. And I'm happy to take questions as we go, guys. Just throw them out there. So I'm going to come back to one of the big things that I hear all the time, and I talked about this this time last year. So you've got a problem, or there's an area of development, and we see success. Let's take a technical skill of passing. Player A can't pass particularly well. In my head, I've got this vision of what passing should look like. So I view success as this vision in my head, and here's the starting point. And that's kind of where we want to get. We want to get there as quickly as possible, don't we? Yeah? Because the quicker I get there, what? The quicker I can get in to be successful, what's the outcome? Better he is, potentially. Or she is, or they are. The better they are. But are they better under the constraints of pressure, or are they just better at being aesthetic? But the true journey looks a little bit more like that, doesn't it? Their journey moves up and down depending on what kind of frame of mind they're in. Depends on some skills they get quite quickly, other skills they won't. But do you know what? Sometimes above the line, yeah, they get it, they drop off below the line. How do I pick them back up, get them back above the line? And we're not, the one thing that kind of stops us from doing that is that. Time. Time is a constraint on a coach. But who puts it there?
If it's a Sunday morning, you can't be parents, you can't be club, managing fields.
Because I kind of look at that and say, we own that. As a coach, I own that. If I can create the environment where time doesn't matter, the objective of this is that at the end of the season, every player is actually better. I'm not fussed about how many games we win, and I'm genuinely not fussed about how many games I win. I far would rather look at how do players develop across the year, because you know what? Success will come if I can develop players, and it will come at an appropriate time. How many of you are aware that back at my mum's house, I have the Under-8 Sussex Championship Cup on my mantelpiece? What, you didn't know? It's really, really important, you know? As an Under-8, I won the Sussex Cup. Don't you know how important that is? It's not important.
It is when you're 8, though.
Do you really think that? I'm not convinced about that.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced. I'm not saying you're wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced. Because I can remember back and just taking it home and putting it up there, and I was back outside straight away, doing something else. So the importance that we put on success, the importance that we put on winning, shapes that picture. So because we start down here and we want to get to there, we start to go down a different route in our coaching. We start telling a little bit more. We start instructing a little bit more. We start setting up drills and exercises and drill it 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 and drill it. And guess what? They go onto the pitch during a game. It bears no relevance to the drill because actually, do you know what? I'm perfect when nobody's in front of me. Less perfect when there is somebody in front of me. How many of us actually think that way? That time is your biggest pressure. Time is your biggest constraint. Certainly was when I first started coaching. I thought my success was measured by how many games I won and who I selected to win. Actually, I feel slightly different now. That's a great statement, isn't it? What do we think about it? Practice doesn't make perfect, only perfect practice makes perfect. What does perfect practice look like?
Don't know. Every game's different.
Every game's different.
You've got to make mistakes to learn.
So we've got to make mistakes to learn. So that only accounts, as far as I'm concerned, that only accounts if we're looking for the perfect picture. How many of us are looking for the perfect picture?
Only if you consider that perfect is not making mistakes.
Well, that's well, we already know that nobody is perfect, so why strive for it?
But
You're right.
perfect might include the ability and allowing players to make mistakes.
So what does perfect look like? If we're looking for perfection, or perfection is something that we put on a pedestal, what does perfection look like? What are we measuring it against?
Well, I suppose in hindsight, perfect would be that player A has improved throughout a course of time, and they also made these mistakes, which are now fewer, and they're a better player, or they're better at that particular task.
Oh yeah, well that might not be perfection. Perfection for me would be a learning journey. If I could create a learning journey for anybody, that would be perfection for me. Because irrespective of what their ability and what they come out of it as, I've created a journey for them. It's kind of what I would view as perfect. But that tends to be what we measure perfection against. The aesthetic, pleasing quality of a skill or a technique. So if we understand that that's actually not quite so important, does it really matter? Just something for you to think about. Perfect doesn't exist, so why do we strive for it? And if perfect isn't, should we say, so important, as actually is the outcome more important, is the experience more important, and if we view them as more important, why do we strive for that perfection? I'm not worried how a kid grips a ball. As long as he grips a ball and it feels good for him and he can pass it, I'm not really that worried. And yet, we say everybody in this room, but a lot of coaching sessions I go to, there's a lot of time spent on, must hold the ball like this, 10 points of contact, you must hold it this way, you must pass this way, bring your elbow up, push your hands across your chest. There's a lot of time spent on that, and actually the kid, just let him pass. He'll work out the best way to pass. We can guide, and by no means am I saying that there shouldn't be some kind of level of guidance and benchmark or a level. That's something to measure yourself against, rather than being measured against. Any questions up to this point? What have I got you thinking?
Just go back, you talked about 10 points in the rugby ball. Now, you probably all trying to teach basic skills. Probably 10 points in the rugby ball would probably be one of those. So, if you're saying let them pass, of course, but is there not an argument that millions of coaches have given millions of hours, and maybe we've worked out as a group that maybe that is the right way to pass ball?
Yeah.
Is that wrong? I mean, it might not be for that particular kid at that particular time, or that individual. But, I mean, I understand we're trying to kind of move forward with rugby and what we're trying to do, but is there not an argument that basics are basics because they work?
Yes, there is. Yeah. Not disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
I'm throwing these out for you to think about. These are challenges to me. I want to bring these challenges to you. They ask, hopefully they ask more questions, so things like, well actually, hang on a second, no, I actually agree. I think basics are basics. And we can argue our opinions on what a basic is, but that's not what this is about. This is about philosophy. It's about, do we spend too much time on basics, as in how to grip, how to pass, rather than learning that within a game context? And how do we coach within a game context versus how do we coach in a blocked practice?
Yeah, so maybe the argument is how we teach in basics rather than
Very possibly. So here's a question for you. If a rugby ball is on the floor and you've got a group of 12-year-old kids in here and you say go and pick a ball up, how do they pick it up? Without thinking. So they've already got some short-term memory, but the shape of the ball will afford them an opportunity to pick the ball up. I can look at the shape of the ball. You've told me I've got to pick it up. My brain says this is how I'm going to pick it up. Irrespective of how I've coached him, never seen a rugby ball before, how would that kid pick it up?
Naturally.
With one hand or two hands?
Depends how big his hand is.
It depends on how big his hand is. Absolutely. He might have a huge hand and just bend over and pick it up. Right or wrong? Neither. It's not right or wrong, it's just is. Now if he perceives that's the way to pick up a ball, that's fine. It's only when that suddenly becomes, so the outcome, if he's picking up and he keeps dropping it, so the outcome isn't what you want, then we can challenge. But if the outcome is he bends over, he picks it up with one hand and gets it to here, the outcome to me is more important than this perfect model of, squat from your hips, bend your knees, pick it up with that, turn face this way. You know, we get hung up on the small little detail of what is the outcome I'm looking for.
By getting on that, you get more time.
Well, that's another question to ask. How much time do you actually give your kids to actually deliver what you need to deliver? I'll touch on that on another session. So so just coming back, I've got a couple of little things and then we're going to get into a little bit of an activity, or two little activities, so I'll get you to do something. So ACE, how many of you are aware that within sport in general, but certainly within the Rugby Football Union, we're really good at 3-letter acronyms, 3-word acronyms. We've got millions of them. CRC, RDO, PDO, RFU, everything 3-letter acronym. We've got millions of them. Well, here's one of mine. ACE. And I kind of use it quite a lot for me. A just stands for awareness, C stands for correction, E stands for execution. So when I'm looking at something, they're the three things that I'm trying to assess against. Are they aware? When they do something, can they self-correct? And then when they're self-corrected, how do they execute? Just three things that in my mind, okay, if I just assess against those three, they're going to be in a pretty good shape. Thoughts? We're very good at acronyms, aren't we? How important is awareness, do we feel? Well, we're going to touch on it in a minute, and it's practical. We'll see how aware we are. Correction. Correction's really important for me. I think player being able to self-solve is point number one. If player can't self-solve, can his teammate help him to self-solve? If neither of those two get it, that's when I, as a coach, feel I need to intervene, I need to support, I need to help. But ultimately, the player's got to have enough time to be able to self-correct.
You won't be there on the pitch to hold their hand.
Sorry,
You won't be there on the pitch to hold their hand in the game.
well,
They've got to be able to sort that.
And question for you, just about what sort of age of child do you think they're capable of doing A and C?
What do we think?
Who's going to do that over 12? Where do you think they start getting that awareness?
as soon as they pick up a ball, they're aware.
Some kids.
As soon as a ball is in front of them, they're aware. Because my point being is, if you leave a ball on the floor, what would a 2 or 3-year-old do with that ball? They'll either kick it, they'll pick it up, or they'll throw it. They're aware. They're aware it's a ball, and they're aware of the affordances that that ball gives them. To kick, to throw, to hold. They're aware of it straight away. So the point I'm doing is if I create an environment where they can become more aware, it's just exploring those awarenesses. We tend to think children aren't as intelligent as what they are at times. So how many of you grew up, went outside, played in the streets, played on the green, played down the park? We pretty much our age group all did, didn't we? So when I did that, I was kind of surrounded by, I was around 12 when I moved to this new estate, and there was a wonderful green outside the house. And we moved in, and there was a wide range of kids that were in that estate. 16-year-olds, 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, a real wide range. How aware were we? I'll give you how aware we were. So when we played cricket, somebody had to bowl over on. Yeah, you can bowl over on because you're only 10. You can't take a run up because you're 16, you're a little bit quicker. So you've got to bowl under on. Oh, guess what? You're really good, so you've got to bat left-handed. We were aware. We're aware of capabilities. We're aware of rules. We're aware of things that helped us shape a game. We were aware. And how many adults did we need to help shape that game? Not too many. Yet we had a game. We all developed, we all learned some skills. We learned by being tested against other people, whether that be above or below, or peer. So I would say kids are always aware. Our job is to try and draw that awareness out. Correction might be the one that we don't get often enough, because we don't provide enough opportunity. Because as a coach, if I'm not speaking, there's a lot of people over there who think I'm not doing my job. So we kind of feel this pressure in behind our heads, don't we? Ooh, parents don't think I'm a very good coach because I don't say anything. But actually, it's not how much you're saying, but what you are saying. And when you're saying it, it's more important. Make sense?
Yep.
Excellent. So, I kind of want to talk this next little bit is about inputs. So we're going to come back to affordances and opportunity. What do we think influences our inputs? What are our inputs? What helps me play the game of rugby? I'll give you a clue. The first one is vision. Be aware of what opportunities I have in front of me. Second one, I've got to be able to hear things. So how much information am I gathering through my ears? How much information am I gathering through my eyes? Last one. What are the things that get in the way about the environment? The environment has an impact on how you gain that information. Really cold, windy day, how much hearing can you get? It impacts on the amount of hearing you have, doesn't it? So if we understand those three things as connections, we understand that actually players who see more are more able to do. How do I create an environment where players are able to see more and be able to react based on what they see? How do I create that environment? How do I make it so irregular like the game? How do I create an environment where listening and gaining information from my teammates is really important and powerful? How do I gain an understanding of that? What do you do in order to help shape that? I'm going to test that in a second. So, guys, can I just ask you, we'll just do it now. So, I'm going to ask you, if you know 5 other people in the room, go and stand with those 5 other people. So just stand up, have a little look around. If you know some people, yeah, I know him. Just get together as a group. If you don't, it's not an issue. Just go and stand in groups of 5 if you don't know them. If it's a bigger group than 5, that's fine as well.
Make some more numbers.
So when you're in might be 5, might be 6, might be 10. Just find yourself a bit of room. Guys, so I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to head down the back end over there. Okay, and we'll see how many rooms we've got. But if you can just sort of cluster in the area away from the chairs, just cluster yourselves in your little groups. Combine groups if you know enough people from another group. And we'll just head down to this back bit over here. I'm just going to run a quick little experiment with you.
Oh, right, I see.
Guys, I'm not really fussed how many of your group. I'm just looking at, just trying to combine. So, nominate somebody from your group. Need to come and get a ruler from me. We've got 2 groups left. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to nominate 2 people in your group, 1 and 2. Okay, we'll rotate this round so everybody needs to go. So number 1's going to hold the ruler at the top. We're going to hold the ruler at the top like so. Number 2 is just going to hold their hand like so underneath the ruler. I'll demonstrate for you. So the ruler is just above the hand. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. You're not going to say anything. You are just going to let it go, and the guy must grab the ruler. Guys, just listen up a second. How many people actually grab the ruler? Pretty low, isn't it? So my first question to you is, how good are your visual skills that you can't see the release of the ruler and grab it before it gets through? All I'm asking you to do is just look at the ruler. Don't look at anything else. Look at the ruler, watch the ruler, grab it before it goes. Rotate it, get somebody else to go. This is part of an action reaction test. And there are some measurements, and I'll fire an answer to you. So that's visual skills, isn't it? So now we're testing our ability of visual skills. So guess what we're going to do now? We're going to move on to auditory. So this time what you're going to do is, you're going to hold them, so somebody hold the ruler up for me. Who's going to grab it? Okay, the person who's going to grab it this time, close your eyes. When you go to drop it, you will shout, now! And you can only grab it here now. In your own time, give it a go. Apart from the person saying now, there's a reason for it. Apart from the person saying now, I'm going to take visionary exercises, we've looked at some auditory exercises. Okay, this time we're going to go to a tactile exercise. So, real quiet again. We're going to hold the ruler. First who's going to be catching it, close your eyes. As you drop the ruler, just going to tap the person on top of the shoulder. Tap as you drop it. Try and keep it quiet, sensory perception and get lost about 1 or 2 seconds. So if we recognise, actually, I can scan, recognise that I'm going to act within 2 seconds. It just shows you how quickly you've got to react. So my question to you then is, how can we turn this into some kind of rugby exercise on the pitch that develops those 3 skills? I've got some ideas, which I'm happy to share later, not necessarily now. Now I'm starting to think, well, how do I get this into a rugby context? How do I make this rugby specific? If I understand that the inputs I receive help me be a better player, how do I correctly drive the inputs I receive? Yeah? So I'm going to make this even harder. So we talked about the environment, didn't we? So this time we're going to do exactly the same. We're just going to go back to the first one, visionary. Okay, but this time I want somebody else in the group to be right in that player's face, shouting at them as they're about to receive the ruler. Who found that really easy? There's a couple that is. There's some excellent models out there. Hopefully you can try and get what I'm trying to get out of that is that if we understand that input is essential to the outcome, how do we develop that ability to understand input? What do you use already to help vision? What do you use already to help connection to somebody else?
You can remove audio to force them to use their vision. So you could
remove audio, excellent, really, really good one. How else can we do things? Trying to change their learning habits. Do we recognise that those 3 things are really important? If I can't see, I can't do. We've got to be able to make sure that they see better, so if I can see the opportunities, I'm more able to take them. Make sense?
Yeah.
We'll explore a little bit, we're going to do another practical a little bit later with one of the groups. But yeah, some really good work there. How easy was it when people started shouting and screaming at you? A little bit harder, wasn't it? Guess what? That's what players have to listen to all the time. People shouting and screaming different bits of information from the sideline. I'm trying to hear what player A next to me is trying to say. It's really, really difficult, isn't it?
I'm actually not a rugby coach. I've done some coaching with young people in different sports and older people physically. But in basketball, there's an auditory and distraction.
Echo.
They
Massive amount of echo.
Ball, right in your face, and you have to get used to that whilst dribbling and focusing on your dribbling skills.
It's just outside interference. If I can shut off peripheral noise,
There's a lot of
focus on what is important.
There's a lot of focus on being distracted, but making the right decision.
Yeah, no, I mean there are some challenges in basketball which are slightly different to ours, but no different in the context that wind and rain versus echo noise in a gym. They're both environmental conditions which affect my ability to do one or two of those skills. We have to factor that in. And you can play a lot around with some of those kind of games. As I say, I'll forward you on the bits around the timing of it. So with the ruler, the great thing about the ruler is you can measure it. So where you grab it this time. I think what was really quite exciting was seeing how slow the reaction was to close the gap. I don't think it was the not seeing it, it's I can't do that quick enough. Hey, it's not really a skill we need, is it? Or do we? So the point that I'm trying to make is that we have lots of these inputs, and kind of what underpins all of these inputs and affords me the opportunity to see things and do things is about how we move through the three different types of memory. So sensory memory, we talked about just now. How long roughly does sensory memory last for? Kind of 1 to 2 seconds. And I can probably hold in my sensory memory area. You can hold in very small amounts of information. So I can see it, I've got to react pretty quickly to it, because A, the situation's probably changed. Secondly, as soon as I take my eyes away from it, I'm moving on to the next sensory element. So sensory element is really, really short. Then we have short-term memory. The great thing about short-term memory is I can't forget what I've just been told. How many of you, when you're introduced to people, so if I was to get one of you to stand up and be introduced to 10 people, could you remember all 10 people's names? How many do you think you'd remember? To be fair, if you're like me, maybe 2, maybe 3. But a generic thing is around 5 to 7, depending on your level of association. So what good people do is they associate names to something or somebody. Oh, I know another Brian, so I remember your name because you're Brian. My mate's Brian. I associate. So association helps short-term memory. And then we have long-term memory, which means we can hold a lot more information. How do we get long-term memory? Kind of the bits that we're putting there, the rehearsal, the practice, and the association. If we use those 3 things really, really well, we can start to transfer short-term memory into long-term memory. And if we can start to shift that into that long-term memory aspect, I'm more able to perform more regularly. So let's take a kind of a dynamic situation, which most of us probably do. 3v2s, 2v1s, practice we use regularly. How do we run that practice? Probably around some cones into a square. Yeah? Okay, so my first question is that's a very repetitive program. So if we keep repeating it, how often do I learn from it? Keep repeating it, keep repeating it, keep repeating it. What's my learning from it? It has a place, guys, so don't think I'm putting it away. I'm just saying, if we keep repeating it, what am I learning?
Maybe maintenance, guys.
Sorry?
Maybe maintenance, guys, not just
Yeah.
taking forward and maintaining the standard.
So I'm maintaining an ability, definitely. What else am I doing?
You do something that often enough you become unconsciously competent at things, don't you? You eventually become unconsciously competent at things that you do, you don't have to think about what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of skill acquisition, we're trying to move them from cognitive to associative to autonomous. Cognitive is I understand what's going on. Associative, I understand when to do it. Autonomous is I don't think about it, I just do. When that's our spectrum, that's kind of where we're trying to get them from. Understanding through to being able to do it without thinking. That's brilliant, that would be, wouldn't it? Oh, it's nirvana, isn't it, for a coach? Players doing without thinking. But it's a difficult place to get to. So in order to do that, we do a lot of practice, which is repetitive. The question I want to throw out, and I'm not asking for an answer, it's something to think about, is if we always did 2v1 round a cone, how often in a game is that situation exactly the same? So if we continually practice things that aren't relevant to the game, how do I associate it when I get onto the pitch?
Who says they're not relevant though?
Sorry?
I would say the 2 and 1 very relevant because it teaches
It's very
them,
relevant.
Yeah, and it teaches them lots of different skill sets that will come up in the game. Not maybe in that one channel, but the drawing, the passing, it teaches them a whole.
I completely agree. That's what I say. I'm not dissing the practice. I think the practice has a lot of boundaries which we can extend and we can push.
So do you say that for the sake of doing a practice session, you can do it a bit repetitive, you chuck different things in as you go along?
Hold that thought, because we'll come back to that in a second, because you're right. Ultimately, the conditions and constraints we put on the 2v1 is what makes it more game realistic. Because the 2v1 is very relevant. But running around a cone, player A runs around a cone, runs down this channel, defender runs around this channel, player B runs around that channel, receives to pass. Very rarely does a defence always come at you from in front. Very rarely do you come round a corner and run 2v1 in that direction. So the practice itself is a good practice, but the way we organise it, is it game relevant? That's the question I'm asking. And at times it will be. But we tend to rehearse it in the same way all the time. Yet the game is a fluid dynamic, isn't it? So how do I make that 2v1 practice more dynamic, more fluid, more adaptable? How do I shape that player's ability to reflect and do things? Yeah, so we start to do I start from different positions? So then we start getting into the 4 key aspects, which we'll hopefully touch on after this next one here. So we're going to go back down to the end again. And I just need 7 volunteers for me, please. 7 volunteers, we're all going to do that. The rest can go around the outside, just need 7 volunteers in the middle for me. Let's go.
Don't jump to volunteer, guys.
And then how we start to shape our practices. Try and gain A, auditory, B, visual. So rugby netball, how many people play rugby netball to all? One of the best games I've ever seen for the games. It's great, isn't it? Second thing for me about rugby netball, I can say to 20 players, okay, rugby netball sort of sells out into teams, there's the ball line. Self-organising. I don't have to be in control of that, but it's self-organising. So 7 players, yeah, 5. Straight away, can be self-organising with 7 players. Whereas one guy is just going to walk around and just pass the ball to each other. So one more, fantastic. So let's go 8. So all I'm going to say is you 4, 1, 2, you 4, go 2. Okay, all we're doing here, guys, is just walking, okay, throwing it in the space, just keep it. That's what we're going to do. The only way you can get hold of the ball is to intercept it. Guys, I don't see any slap downs. If you can't catch it, don't go for it. That's the only thing. Yep. Yeah. Carry on. I'm selling this now. I'm not going to do it. Okay, hold on there. Just stop there for me. So what I'm now going to try and do is start to look at, well, how can I build into this some of that auditory and visual stuff? What do you look like this? No talking, no drawing. Guys, who watch TV? Do you watch dramas on TV? So do you ever watch Timmy and Bobby? What's Timmy and Bobby? What about Bobby Moore? Greatest footballer ever. Come on, you hammers. Okay, so in there they actually played a little game. So it shows you, they're not really reinventing it, this used to exist. So what I'm doing now is, I want you to go and introduce yourself to learn such things. Associate with what? Okay guys, we ready to go? Okay, so we're just going to go straight back into the game. This time when I shout freeze, I want you to freeze exactly where you are and close your eyes straight away. Play. Freeze! Close your eyes. Okay, Mark, I want you to tell me where all your players are. Bring it. Ash, where are your players? Open your eyes, where are you accurate? Pretty accurate, huh? Pretty accurate? Okay, so straight away, just even in a game of netball, I can start to get them to start to visualise, start to associate to the things that really help us. What else might be making the answer? Yeah, just so we can decide, shows the things right. Okay, so I'm really going to ask you the different chances, right? Start playing, again, I shout freeze, close your eyes. Yes. Freeze! Close your eyes, close your eyes. Okay, this time, I want you to tell me where your position are. Okay, hold it there. Don't open your eyes yet. Okay, I want you to tell me where the two big spaces are. Open your eyes. Straight away, I can start to use these kind of games to get them to think a little bit differently. Start to shape what I want to see. Make sense?
Yeah.
Really quite simple as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a different dynamic. Okay. Told you it was going to be that easy. Give them a round of applause, guys. So what do we start to think about? What kind of thoughts is that starting to trigger in you? So yeah, so asking questions around doubt. What else? Definitely get players to find their own solutions, without a doubt. What else?
It's awareness.
Awareness for me is the biggest thing. As you get players to understand and be more aware of their surroundings, they're more likely to act in an appropriate manner. So I change their behaviour. That for me is one of my big fundamentals. Skill, yeah, we'll come back to that later. I'll teach them how to hold the ball, how to pass the ball. But if they get this early, trust me, it makes your life a lot easier. When would I be doing this? 6, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, why not? Who says they can't do it? Who's limiting their ability? It's just a coach. I don't give them the opportunity to develop, if I don't give them the opportunity to try something, how do I know whether they can or not? Why am I making decisions without actually knowing? So we're going to flick into what I call. So I want you to look at your book that you've written your key principles of what you think are fundamental to good coaching there. Because I have these 4 for me. These are the principles behind every session that I try to deliver. So I'll tap into them. Conditions. What do we mean by conditioned games? How? So we changed the rules. Good. Condition games also tend to be small-sided games. What else? What kind of conditions can we put on a game in order to shape and change the type of game which then shapes and changes the behaviour that we see, the outcomes that we want to see?
Pressure. Pressure size.
Pull off of pressure for a second, but yeah, that kind of fits in there a little bit.
Size of the passes.
Sorry?
Amount of passes.
Could do that, condition the amount of passes.
Overloaded numbers in each team.
Numbers in each team. Size of the pitch. These are all conditions. And I've got sort of 7 or 8 of them written down here, so, you know, varying the playing area, changing when you start, shape position, introduce the ball in a variety of ways. They're all conditions. And condition games are great because, as we said earlier, the 2v1, if it's not fluid, if it's not dynamic, it doesn't really replicate. The outcome of a 2v1 is exactly the same that you're looking for every time. One player gets through into space. That's the outcome I'm looking for. How they do it, switch, kick, pass, I'm not fussed. That's their decision to make based on the information they're receiving. So if I can start to put conditions, I can start to shape situations that replicate the game. That's why they're really, really important. So how often, when you're planning your sessions, do you start to think about, okay, I've watched them play a few times now, here's an area that I think needs development. Okay, what conditions can I put into a game that will help show that or expose that? How often do you do that? Regularly? Excellent. It's not an easy thing to do. Because you really have to think about what is the outcome by going 3v1. 3v1 tends to be harder than 2v1 in the first instance, because they've got too many options to think about. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Constraints. What are constraints?
Time.
Could be number of passes again, yeah.
Paces, make a move.
Yeah, so how far I can run, what I do when I receive the ball, who can score. That tends to be a condition rather than a constraint. So a constraint is how we utilise. Constraints tend to be put on individuals performing an action. Conditions tend to be put onto the game.
How many words they're allowed to say?
Yeah, could well be that, yeah. I could turn and say, so I've got player X. Sorry, what's your name? Sean. So Sean's really, really quick. He's rapid. It's the first time I've ever said that to you. Sean's really, really rapid. Okay, so a constraint I could say to try and help shape Sean's ability is, Sean, if it's a one-handed touch, it's immediate turnover. Because I want him to use his pace, and I want to use his evasive skills to not be touched. So I could put a constraint on Sean. I could, on the other hand, say, sorry.
So how do you avoid, we do that sometimes, and some, like coach out of 13s, sometimes they will say, well, that's not fair, how come I'm not allowed to do it or anything else?
So how have you created an environment where he understands the purpose of practice? Do your athletes understand the purpose of practice? I bet you they don't. They understand the purpose of a game, score more points than the other. So how often have you seen this scenario? It's a prime example. Team A have got the ball. One of the players in Team A, beautiful little jig, offloads to player X in his team, player X scores. Team A will turn around and run him back. A player from Team B picks the ball up, runs the full length of the pitch, scores. Why do you think that happens?
They think they need to score to win.
Because he understands the game is about winning. It's about scoring more points than the opposition. But does he understand the purpose of practice? Practice is about testing and extending yourself and developing your ability. Now, are those that say, yeah, well, kids don't really want to do that. Well, do you know what? I'll tell you where it came from for me. Is I was very unfortunate one Saturday to not go and watch the rugby. Because my partner decided that it was a 3-6 day. Crockery, curtains and cushions. I had to go out shopping with her for crockery, curtains and cushions. Come on, put your hand up if you're ready to do that. I'd say what, it's in there. So after about 5 visits to various stores where we still couldn't find a cushion that was appropriate, really? Couldn't find a cushion that was appropriate. I kind of got a bit bored. Of course, you're going in the shop on your own. And I needed a seat, I needed a coffee. And luckily for me, across the road from this, there was a McDonald's. So I went into the McDonald's and I bought a coffee. And as I came out, there was a skate park there. And I was watching these skateboarders in this skate park. And it was really interesting because they were committed. There was no adult there. They were committed to going there. When they got there, they had 3 things: fun, enjoyment, and development. The development bit was owned by themselves. They went there to be better at certain skill sets. That's what they spent time with their friends and their mates. They kind of got me thinking, how's that different to rugby? Why did they go there on purpose to be better? Because they understood the purpose of practice. I want to be better at the skill. Because my mate can do this, but I can't, so I want to do it. So I'll go and I'll watch my mate and I'll learn. I'll get my mate to video me on my smartphone. I'll re-look at it. Oh, I didn't push my foot down hard enough on that exercise. I'll give that a different go. Oh, still struggling with this. Get on YouTube. Let me see somebody else doing this. Right, okay, I think I'll give it a go now. They owned their own practice. So if they understand the purpose of practice, do you think players would then deliver it better?
Yeah, I agree with you completely, but putting constraints on them is preventing them from doing a skill that they've got.
You're right.
For example,
No, you're right.
They want to get a skill, so they practice until they've
So
got it.
here's my question back: is it preventing them or is it extending them?
No, I agree with you completely. How do you get that across the 12-year-old?
I'd have that conversation. You're really good at this, aren't you? Yeah. How do you think you can be better? Okay, so to make you better, I want to really, really challenge you quite hard. And have that one-on-one conversation in line with work.
So I was just going to say, it doesn't have to be the whole session, it could be for one game. One game
Yeah.
to develop this.
Yeah.
Concentrate on this and just see how you get on that.
Absolutely. So you give them a 10-minute challenge. This is for the next 10 minutes. This is what's going to happen. Then I'm going to take that constraint away. Has it shaped it? Has it changed it? I'll guarantee you they'll be better after that 10 minutes by taking the constraint back away. If they understand the purpose of practice, they're more likely to do it. Just interesting about skateboarders, though, isn't it? Perform really, really complex skills. No adult intervention. No coach standing over their shoulder. Here they are, aware of their own learning.
It's not a constraint on them scoring either.
No.
I'm not being funny. When I was younger, I played in coaching sessions where I was told you can't score. So I waited for a friend to catch up with me so I could pass them the ball.
How does that help?
Or someone challenging me to do it better.
So again, I would say, if I stop somebody from scoring, I'm taking away a tool. I'll touch on that a little bit later, but why are we taking away the tools? They've worked hard to develop a tool. Don't take it out of the toolbox. Keep it in there. No, we'll look at that a little bit differently in a minute. So we get the idea of constraints. It's how we challenge individuals. We might have somebody, how many of you have got a player who's a little bit slower? Whenever he gets to pass the ball, he tends to pass it straight away. Why do you think that is? Part of it's confidence, but for me, and in my understanding, it's 9 times out of 10 it's because he knows he's not very quick, he's going to get touched quickly, so I just as well pass it on straight away. So I'm going to put a constraint on him, so actually you get 3 touches before you've got to pass. I'm going to encourage him to actually try it and go forward first. So the constraints to develop him, to give him that confidence to go forward. We use constraints in many, many different ways. Consequences. How do we view consequences? I told you one earlier, I kept dropping the ball, I had to do hundreds of press-ups. Consequence of me dropping the balls, I had to do press-ups. How do we use consequences?
They're usually negative.
Yeah, aren't they? 9 times out of 10 they are negative.
And use plus as well.
When do we use consequences in a positive way?
Well, you could, in other sports, we've used consequences in a positive way by having maybe 5 teams, so 2 teams are on, the first team to score stays on.
So that is a consequence,
That's
yeah.
a consequence.
You score, stay on, you keep playing.
Everybody wants to stay on.
Yeah, that's a consequence. What other consequences in a positive way?
One of our parents was rewarding his kid with a fiver for every try. He scored 3 in a game.
Put him right up the pedestal, because that kid's going to be skipped when every other kid catches him up and he no longer scores tries. But it is, yeah, I mean, that's kind of reward rather than consequence. So how about, so we use it to try and change behaviour quite well. So I use some terminology which is quite generic. We encourage people to run up branches, not trunks. Yeah? Kind of something that we probably talked about quite a lot. So every time they run into the trunk, turn over the ball straight away. Turn over the ball, turn over the ball, turn over the ball, turn over the ball. I haven't told them. What do you think they're going to get after a while? He keeps pinging us for something. What is it? There'll be a smart kid on the team saying, stop running into bodies. So how do I now reinforce good behaviour? Running at the branch.
Keep the ball.
Keep the ball. Yeah, if you run and somebody touches you, but you're at arm length, carry on playing. So the consequence of doing what I'm looking for, you get rewarded by keeping the ball. Consequence if you're not doing it, you lose the ball. So we have a positive and a negative. And there's a whole range of those that you can use. How do we use consequences to influence behaviour? Just think about them. Your parents, aren't you? Well, there's a lot of parents in here, no doubt. God, think of all those consequences. You're not having any sweets unless you go to bed tonight. No, you're not going out to grind until you've done your homework. We use consequences all the time. Just think about what consequences we can use in a game situation that will help your players get what you're trying to get them to. Ringing bells? Simple, isn't it, really? I'm trying to change behaviour, I've got to come up with a strategy to do that. Affordances, we've already talked about, haven't we? I want them to exploit the opportunities they see. So how do I develop their ability to see? Showed you a game there. You can do that in any game. Freeze. What was in front of you? What were you going to do? Now open your eyes. Based on what you were going to do, was it the right decision? There's no such thing as a bad decision. Because if somebody's made a decision, they made it for a reason. There's just better decisions. There's no such thing as a bad decision in my book. It's just better decisions. So if you could get that ball again and make a different decision, what would it be? Play. Change the shape. Okay, let's change the shape back to what you would like it to be based on what you saw. Play. You don't always have to start the game straight away in the way it stopped. That's how we start to shape the affordance. Get them thinking about the big picture. Questions on any of those? How many, first question for me actually, to you guys, how many of you had any of those on your list? Remember guys, I'm throwing this out there, this is 27 years in the making. You know, the last 4 years my journey has really come into this. This is where I've been shaped by the people I sit down and have conversations about rugby with. And that's the idea of tonight, is me just sharing some of these ideas with you. Some of it you'll go, you know what, I get that, and you'll try that. Some of it you'll say, don't agree with that. That's fine. That's the beauty of coaching. You are the master of your own destiny. Just go back to my acronyms again. I shared this one last year. I still use it. Ideas is kind of, when I'm trying to plan a session, it's kind of what the process that I tend to go through. Why to me is probably the biggest and most important thing. They can understand why they are doing something, whether it's a positive decision or a negative outcome, based on whatever decision they make. They can understand why they've done it. They're in a good place. Talked about pressure earlier. Pressure dictates everything. How do we make things easier? Get used to it.
Scale pressure down.
Scale pressure down. How do we scale pressure? So 3 types on our pressure dial. Time and space are 2 of them. Third one's opposition. Numbers on the opposition. So we can scale our pressure dial. Too easy? What do players get? Bored. Too hard? Panic. Frustration. Can't do this. So it's just trying to find that real balance between high and severe. That's where we really want to live. Where do we use low moderate? In there. We use the low moderate so they can understand the why. When they've got the why, we probably want to be starting to push the boundaries a little bit more. Talked about toolboxes, didn't we? What do your players have in their toolbox? Give me some of those skills that your players have in their toolbox. Running? Evasion? Sorry? Handling? Kicking? Communication? Contact skills? There are a lot of tools in their toolbox. Now, as coaches, we're pretty good at taking their tools away. So just put your hand up for a total honesty session here. You're running this session, you've got kids playing. How many of you have said no kicking? Put your hands up, come on, honesty factor. Why? It's a tool. Why don't you take it out?
9 times out of 10 it's the problem, doesn't it?
But him kicking isn't the problem, is it? The outcome that you wanted isn't what you were getting. But the kick wasn't the problem. See, for me, if we come back to the very, very original statement I talk about, affordances, what did we say affordances were? Opportunities. So, if I have an opportunity to kick, I'm going to kick it. If you tell me I can't kick, what I'm going to stop doing? Looking for it. If you take it away, I'm going to stop looking for it. And when the opportunity's there, how am I going to ever see it? Because I've not been training to see it. So rather than take the toolbox away, rather than take the tool away, what can we do? Constraints, conditions, consequences. I might put 3 players in the backfield. If you kick now, the opposition are likely to get the ball. So what are they going to do? You'd like to think they might not kick, but hey, that's probably more going back to the why. Do they understand the why? But I always want my players to have every tool that they've got. I want to afford them the opportunity to deliver on what they see in front of them. Don't take tools away.
So why do they restrict kicking at a younger age group?
I think obviously to develop the handling first, so it's, if you look at the progressive stages of it, it's when it becomes a tool. So that the game is what the game is. We can't shape that bit. Here's a question for you. So they might well restrict it. How many of you coach kicking at a young age? Just because they can't use it in the game doesn't mean say you can't coach it. Every child that comes to you, not every child, probably a big exaggeration. Most children that come to you have played football and can kick. So what we do is we wait to teach them until it's actually in the game. We've wasted 10 years of being able to teach a skill. Just because it's not in the game doesn't necessarily don't teach it. You teach it a lot earlier.
On that point, in my team, we used to especially under levels now, the only kids that can rugby were the soccer kids.
Yeah.
In fact, despite the fact that they've been playing rugby for like 2 or 3 years, some of them didn't kick the ball at home or have balls at home. They only kicked the soccer kids. And what my frustration
It's normally because we just take away that condition, we take away that as an option, we take it away as a tool. Now I recognise that there are development stages for our game. We want to take them through those various stages. So we put in incremental stages of development. If you take kicking as a maths example, let's take it as an English example probably. Kicking is like Shakespeare. We don't teach Shakespeare with the younger ages, do we? Because the complexity of it's quite difficult. What we teach them is Janet and John, don't we? So we teach them Janet and John, and then we add to Janet and John, we'll probably give them a little bit of a, what should we say? Ooh. Possibly. You're just giving away a little bit about yourself here. But yeah, we just give them some different books, don't we, to read, and then we add on some complexity all the time. So yeah, for me, the constraints to the game are what they are. I can't change that. But what I can do is when it is available, I'm not going to take it away. I'm going to put it in there.
The 9 out of 10, most Sunday mornings, whatever, you're going to go certain kids that will be sitting there, plenty age.
Of course they are.
So when they're warming up, just don't get on with it.
There's also a thing of every time you go in, the kids all stay out there and they run their own game, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
The game that they run looks nothing like your game. Here's a question for me, why doesn't it? Why don't they want to play the games that you're teaching them? Something to think about.
They tend to focus on what they're good at rather than what they're not so good at, and we're trying to develop them. They do the things that they aren't good at.
Should the game develop?
And they tend to practice things
Yeah,
that they are good at.
I think you're right. I think there is definitely an aspect of that. But you know what? Kids do push themselves and challenge themselves. They do try things. You give kids a soccer ball, what do they do with it? They don't just kick it back and forward here, do they? They're playing keeping up against the things. They try different things, they try different techniques. But you are right, most of the game is very much on the skill set that they know. So yeah, the toolbox. There's too many things in their toolbox, don't take it away. Empower them to use them appropriately. That's got to be the message. So, the huddle. How many of you use the huddle? Predominantly, the way we use the huddle is we've let players play for about 5 or 10 minutes. At the end of about 10 minutes, we blow our whistle. In you come! In you come! In you come! Hey, come on, in you come! Is that right then? We have to say it about 20 times just to get it in. But once we've got them all in, what we then do is we ask a series of questions that kind of directs their learning to what I really want them to do. Why don't you just tell them? Why are you wasting your time on a series of 8 questions that's directing their learning based on what you want? Just tell them. Or, there's another way. Throw the problem in at the kids. This is the problem, this is what I'm seeing. As a group, come up with a solution. If you come up with a solution, come and tell me what the solution is. We'll go back straight into the game. I'm going to measure against the solution you come up with. Did it work? Did it work? How do we empower our players to own the huddle? They're the ones that have got to solve it on game day, haven't they? So start creating the environment where they are starting to self-solve. I'm not saying the huddle's a bad thing for coaches as well. There does come a time when coaches do need to step in. It's kind of what we call that power of 3. Player first. Can the player self-solve? Can he react? Can he change his behaviour? Can he now do what he was being asked to do? No, he can't. Can his teammate help him? Can his teammate make him better? Just stand a bit deeper. Teammates do that, don't they? They can communicate with each other all the time about that. So can the teammate help him? And if he can't solve it, his teammates can't help him, what's next? Coach. How do we facilitate their learning? That's when we come in. If we can allow them more time at the start, using that huddle technique, much more self-organising, much more empowerment, much more resolution from them, not from us.
And then you'll get a natural leader out of it, there'll be one that'll be picking up.
Oh, without a doubt, you'll always get that. But how do we reinforce and how do we check learning? We'll touch on that one because that's a really good point. So just create opportunities for players to challenge each other, to come up with solutions. How many of you use those kind of free reviews? Do we know what a hot review is? Here's a question for you. How many of you give parents or players come up to you and say, I never receive any feedback? Get it all the time, don't we? Well, never get any feedback. I would suggest that within a game, every player probably gets 5 or 6 elements of feedback. 90% of it is what I call a hot review. It's in the moment. Well done, good evasion. Nice timing on the pass. That's the feedback. Players don't see that as feedback because we don't check and challenge against it. But it is feedback. How else might we use the hot review? Players, as they come up the levels a little bit, one of the ways we can do that is very much by getting them to tell you. When they've made a decision, just call it out to you. Yeah, received the ball, saw space, went to kick, poor kick. Execution wasn't good. What's the benefit of that? Where players are starting to review it.
Learn their mistakes.
Learn mistakes. Recognition.
So ownership of it.
Ownership. Self-aware. Really gives me the ability to gain an understanding of what they're doing and why they're trying to do it. Where they're at and their level. Hot reviews are really, really good. Cold reviews. That tends to be where I use the players. Okay, stop there. Take a bit of time out. Let's investigate what you guys have been doing, what you're going to do differently in order to impact on the objective. Always give them the objective. Guys, this is what we're trying to do. It's not quite working. Have a chat, come up with a solution. Always give them the objective. That's kind of the cold. And deep freeze tends to be us when we come in and we try and facilitate that review. What's the challenge with deep freeze? Sorry? Can be, get it started again. What else?
Don't talk too much.
Not
talking too much.
Not talking too much, that's definitely one. And I can talk for England, by the way. The other one is just about short-term memory. How many of your players can recognise what they did 5 or 6 minutes ago? So when you do bring the ball in, you start saying, Sean, what did you do when you received the ball on the wing? I don't know. When? Because my short-term memory, I've moved on. Because I haven't repeated it, haven't reinforced it, it's not in there. So you're actually asking questions that he's got no correlation of actually what's happened. That's the problem with deep freeze, which is why the hot and the cold are probably better. But there is a time and place for deep freeze. Does that make sense? So I come back to my opening statement. What do we think now? Covered a vast array of different areas where we can start to look at that. One thing we didn't touch on there was perception. Everybody perceives something. As I said earlier about the child who looks at a ball on the floor. I perceive, I can pick it up. I have a perception about it. Of every perception, there is then normally an action. So if we come back to the root again, could I have 2 volunteers just to come up to the front? Any 2 volunteers? I'll try not to make it fall out of one of you. You're going to hold both those rulers. You're going to put both hands on here. Okay, now we're going to start to talk about what's next in the just turn around that way for me, just slightly, just so the camera can pick it up a little bit. If you can't see, guys, just move around. So basically now there is 2 rulers. So you have a choice of 2 things here, don't we? What's choice number 1?
At the same time.
Could go for 1, but I'm going to say you can only go for 1. You can't use both hands. Only one hand can close. Now, hold both hands there, but he's only going to drop one of the rulers. Now what? What 2 rules have we got here? He's either got to perceive something, or he's got to wait for it to happen, hasn't he? So, in your own time, you're just going to look, just drop one of the rulers. With both hands, didn't he? With both hands. Yeah, let's give it another go. Excellent work. Excellent. He did catch it though. So why did you go with that hand that time?
I don't know.
Why do we think he might have?
It's just
Because you went for that one first, you might have perceived actually, you used that one last time, I'm going to go for this one. Or you might have perceived actually he's going to double bluff me. So straight away there's perception happening in there. And for every perception there's an action. And when we can couple, when we can couple the perception and the action and attach that to the affordance, the opportunity, we start to get players where we really want to get to. Any questions? Have you got more questions now than when you came in the room? That was my goal. Really wanted you to think about things slightly differently. Thank you very much for your time. I know it's fairly short, sharp and sweet. But I really wanted to just share some ideas. These are my ideas. I know it's my saying take everything. You'll have your own ideas, and that's great. I love that. Share them with me because I learn from everybody in this room as well. This is just some of my ideas about coaching and how we can take players from point A to point B. Thank you very much for your time.
Guys, once again, thanks for attending tonight and just thanks for doing the session tonight. We'll send the slides out, so you've got them obviously on link when you get the video. Hopefully it'll be up by the end of the week, so you can review on that as well. Next session is hopefully at the end of February, where Ian Peel's going to do a session. TBC on subjects, might be indoors, might be outdoors, but I'll send that out as soon as possible as well. But guys, obviously any feedback from the evenings and anything that you probably want to draw out from these sessions, it is for your benefit in terms of what you want to take back in the theme, so that can help build the programme, so obviously just feed that back in on the response to the email I'll send out to the follow-up from tonight. But guys, thank you very much again for attending, and safe journey home.
Thank you very much.